3. Kashi spun satirical stanzas on the promenade of medical attention, by scientists and doctors, including administrators and political jamboree. Because he was wise enough to understand, to introduce a cure to the world. Dr. Brown barged in his office. Did you ask for funding raise for your vaccine from the Monetary Committee? Yes, Kashi replied. Why? Just twisting his head in disgust. Did you ask me before submitting your report and financial estimates directly to your boss? Who's asking? Without lifting his head. You can lose your current project. Have you ever thought? When you will be demoted, what would it be like? Carrying guinea pigs around. Dr. Brown was sternly glaring at Kashia's eyes. What were you thinking before taking this idea of yours without my consultation? He evoked deep sentiments of agonizing utter frustration in breaking the currently ordained invisible chain of order. Kashi never realized as he searched his soul through his eyes. What emerged was sheer panic from the depths of his soul, searching way out to communicate and disarm his unwittingly cool charm till now. They are not going to fund, authoritatively dealt with the conclusion as the old man hurried towards the glass door, never looking back. He looked at the desktop to keep his thought away from combinations of worst-case scenarios appearing on radar of his mind. Oh fuck, why did I drink yesterday? Bourbon is killing me now, he murmured as new message popped in his Outlook. Mrs. Wong succumbed to an unknown illness. Please help and respond, the subject read. What? He clicked open the message hurriedly, skimming to the end, where it was summoned, by a sender, Mr. Hayes Lee, by province, somewhere in East. Kashia's head spun. His colleague and serious contender to his position before his promotion as department management head died of unknown illness. He recalled that last year in the month of September these two colleagues were eating cake prepared by Paul's wife. He was sitting on Mrs. Wong's desk chatting early in the morning. Paul had arrived late in the office from his normal routine early visit to the office, with his wife and daughter baked chocolate truffles. Being late by 10 minutes, normally from routine office timings, was still the first time from scientist Paul. He wore a ponytail and spoke in a mid-Western Caucasian accent. His favorite pastime was football, which he played for his local community team. He had invited his newly elevated colleague on Saturday, and cake was one more nice gesture from him. Kashi sadly dug into his chair behind the desktop screen. He opened his mail inbox, with a message, subject, marked important. He remembered, when he arrived in this facility, for the first time, he was greeted by an AI receptionist. She was faceless and formless, and it was difficult to figure out how to operate the state-of-the-art of technology in those years. A message read, I am husband of Fleurs Wong, who took a leave of absence, on 31st March, last year. Kashi vividly remembered seeing a tiny lady sitting, with a beautiful smile on her face. She was alone in a makeshift room. Her workbench was not near where she used to experiment with her prepared cultures. As far as Kashi remembered, Paul had introduced her to him. McCoy, another scientist, over lunch summarized her husband. He was a local rich business owner, but Flores immigrated after his nuptials. She had 2 children. She joined this facility a few years before Kashi was introduced in a development research facility in the north. She was happy to see Kashi for the first time. Kashi shifted his attention towards the pressing issue of getting funded for the antidote research. The zombies are here to stay for eternity. The quarantine measures had failed. Whole political and economical class since 1920 froze. So much has happened under media glare, not just on land, but over rough remote continents all over the world. The virus attacked and killed or maimed humans into zombies. Zombies, rather killing humans or animals, would spread themselves like giant bushfires. The scale of zombie fire would engulf whole geography under T cross 3 hours, tops. virus would treat mountains, rivers, or deep oceans as whiskers. Whiskers, in its journey, never seen at such a cosmic scale. How the world will forget this, ever. Years, decades, or centuries will witness live guinea pigs holed up in their burrows, recorded live. No man or woman, rich or poor, monarch or nurses, were spared from zombie apocalypse. Kashi spun satirical stanzas on the promenade of medical attention, by scientists and doctors, including administrators and political jamboree, because he was wise enough to understand, to introduce a cure to the world. He just lost one of his best compatriots, and a friend, whom all admired in this facility. Please tell me what happened to her, which ailment got her kids motherless, pleaded Mr. Lee. Kashi read on his personal mobile away from the desktop Outlook, which had the same open. He was juggling, in his mind space, three things: funding issues brought to his attention by Dr. Brown, provoking him, before he left. Demise of Mrs. Fleurs Wong to the strain of the rheumatoid endoplasmic gene culture research and his pet project, which would be necessary in securing loans for clinical trials and market research. An email from Mr. Lee was a necessary distraction from certain war-level research and development of an antidote to zombie world apocalypse. 6 months prior to the onset, this deadly strain brought from her petri dish to farm animals and thus launching a deadly attack on manity, and it happened in just a year. Now Fleurs was dead and Kashi was reading with sadness, and numbness hung around his lower eye lines. Still not watery, but a rich business husband cries in words over his dead scientist wife was taking a toll. His heart was blowing up with adrenaline from triple whammy, funds, loss, and looming project deadline. Kashi remembered with numb eyes, as he read Lee's words, how his wife tackled a problem of watching the strain under a microscope. It was the most exciting, simple genius of Flores. A married, cheerful immigrant woman from by province had demonstrated her petri dish to him. He was awed by the simplicity in design of the petri dish culture. As he remembered, when settling in this new facility, taking induction from his knowledge mentor, assigned by Paul. She elaborated her picture from an electron microscope, a culture she developed, working on a backlog. Kashi found the pattern very interesting. Beyond the realm of scientific jargon, in which every petri dish culture was isolated in prime, hers was different. His knowledgeable eyes can find the art in those weaving. That is how he saw Fleur's culture design on petri dishes. He had remarked verbally how artistic he read the design of the rheumatoid strain of endoplasmic genes. He described, "It seems like a woven fabric, a buffalo pattern with two strands of colored threads meshed in squares, genetic markup of the strain, sewed across like a heirloom wooden swindle." Kashi recognized that, being a woman from by province with a doctorate in molecular biology. He saw the commonality in the culture of petri dishes and compared it with the folk tradition of learning crochet by little girls while growing up. The achievement was quite remarkable in scientific and molecular biology. She applied common woman folklore in solving a critical problem. Everyone would have cultured the petri dish the same way. Generally, any scientist would have used microscope picture with mental deduction of multi-dimensional Mobi strands of protein loop for diagnosing gene code structurally. She did quite innovative, in a novel approach. As explained in her own words, she took sucrose to build a scaffold in a square mesh pattern in her culture. She had placed a square scaffold buffalo pattern over brine with magenta-colored dye obtained from iodine compound. Just a water drop could have dissolved everything beyond comprehension. Kashi mind toyed with scientific prank. As Paul joined in to describe the protein structure, it is woven across scaffold vertically horizontally in any three-dimensional space. Multiple distinct strands held separated in rows. Each cell could have different testing treatment applied. They could view material markup and test cells under a microscope not just vertically but horizontally or in any angle they placed their instrument's eyes. This was so simple and remarkable as, compared to forest, otherwise, cultured in petri dishes. Dr. Brown was watching political news in his apartment, retiring on his comfortable couch in front of the wall. He was projecting a television news channel program from an overhead instrument. There was light coming from the glass from the light which had diffused blue-tinted news anchor talking. News anchor was not present in the actual studio which was shut after the zombie apocalypse tore apart socio-economic structure. Holographic projection of hers from her apartment was superimposed on a studio-like digital silhouette background. The use of ultra-high-speed internet made this technology possible. She was heard blaring over installed speakers. The magnitude in southwestern Europe has erupted lately to be #1 virus outbreak destination. 0.2 millions have broken the record tally from last day as Argentina was ranking highest earlier. Our daily correspondent from SW Europe Nemas Hazmi reports live. Over to you, Nemas.